My wife and I built a $350, $0 dream home together, only for her to secretly sell it to her boss for $600, $0, and then turn around and sue me for half the profits. I feel like I've lost everything. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing this kind of story, but here I am. My wife Lisa was always the picture of perfection, beautiful, charming, smart, and seemingly committed. We built what we thought was our dream life together. A $350, $0 house, a nice car, good jobs. Everything looked perfect on paper. But the truth is, I was blind to what was really going on beneath the surface. It all started subtly. Little things here and there, missed calls, late nights at work, strange texts she'd quickly hide when I entered the room. I brushed it off, telling myself she was just busy or stressed. Lisa was always a little bitchy when she was tired or upset, snappy, dismissive, quick to lie or twist things around. But I never suspected she was hiding something so big. Not until I walked into our bedroom one night and saw her phone screen light up with a message from someone named Mark. The message was simple: "Can't wait to see you tonight, I miss you." I froze, my stomach dropped. I looked closer and I saw more messages, flirty, suggestive, clearly more than just friendly banter. I felt like my world was collapsing in that instant, but I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I started paying attention, keeping track of her movements, her calls, her texts. Over the next few days, I noticed she was acting even more secretive. She started taking long business calls in the bathroom, changing her clothes before leaving the house, and even deleting texts and call logs. One day, I decided enough was enough. I snuck her phone while she was at work and went through her messages. That's when I saw the full story. She'd been sleeping with Mark, her boss, for months. They had a whole secret affair, and she had lied to me every step of the way. Lisa told me she loved me, that I was her everything, that she'd never cheat. Turns out she'd been planning it all along. I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, heart pounding. Here I was, thinking we were building a life, and she was secretly betraying me with someone who was supposed to be just her boss. I felt humiliated, furious, and completely betrayed. I wanted to confront her right then, but I knew I had to think carefully. I needed a plan. I couldn't just blow up and lose everything I worked for, our house, our savings, the life we'd built. But I also knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. That night I sat alone in the dark, looking at the photos we'd taken together on our wedding day, the plans we made for the future, all of it suddenly feeling meaningless. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I didn't see the betrayal coming. I thought I knew her, thought I knew us, but the truth was I'd been blind. I'd trusted her to be honest, loyal, faithful, and she'd been secretly stabbing me in the back. All those late nights, the excuses, the fake smiles, they were just cover-ups. Now I was stuck with this terrible choice. Do I confront her and risk everything falling apart? Or do I quietly plan my revenge, take control of the situation, and make her regret ever crossing me? I couldn't believe I was even considering revenge, but honestly I felt like I'd lost everything that mattered: my wife, my trust, my sense of security. And I wasn't about to let her get away with it without paying. That's when I started to plan. I knew she was planning to leave me, maybe even try to sue me for some of the profits from our house, something I'd never expected, especially since we'd built that house together. But now, with this new information, I realized I had more power than I thought. I just had to be careful. I had to outsmart her, catch her in the act if I could, and then revenge. It wasn't just about making her pay. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my life, and making sure she understood that betrayal doesn't come without consequences. I don't trust her anymore. I don't think I can. But I'm not going to let her walk all over me either. I'm going to make her regret ever crossing that line, and I'm going to do it in a way she never saw coming. After I found out about Lisa's affair with Mark, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and I felt like I was walking around in a fog. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible. I had invested so much in her, in us, and now I was faced with the reality that she had been lying to my face for months. The worst part, she kept insisting she loved me, that it was just a mistake, that she was confused. I didn't buy any of it. I knew her better than that. In the days that followed, I started paying closer attention to her behavior. She was more defensive, more manipulative, trying to gaslight me into doubting what I knew. She'd say things like, "You're overreacting," or "It's just work stress, nothing more." But I wasn't buying her lies anymore. I could see the cracks in her story. She was lying about where she was staying after work, who she was talking to, and most importantly, about her feelings. One night, I decided I'd had enough of her denials. I set up a hidden camera in our living room, just in case she tried to cover her tracks. I wanted to catch her in the act if she slipped up again. That night, she left for her book club, but I knew better. I watched her leave, then waited for her to come back. About an hour later she did, but she wasn't alone. She was with Mark. I saw them through the camera, her kissing him in our driveway, her hands all over him. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. That was the moment I knew I had to act. I couldn't just sit around and let her continue this double life. I wanted to confront her face to face, but I also knew I needed a plan. I couldn't just scream and shout. She was a manipulative woman who'd probably turn everything around on me. I needed to catch her in a lie in a way that she couldn't deny. I started gathering evidence, screenshots of their texts, photos of them together, even recordings of her talking about him. I kept everything safe, organized, ready for the moment I'd need it. Meanwhile, I was also doing some digging into her finances. That's when I stumbled upon something shocking. Lisa had been secretly selling parts of the house, our house, to her boss, Mark, for way more than it was worth. She convinced him to buy it. For $600, $0, even though we'd built it together for $350, $0. I couldn't believe it. She'd been planning this for months, probably even before I found out about the affair. And what's worse, she was planning to sue me for half the profits from the sale, claiming I was somehow responsible for the loss of value. It was like I'd been hit with a freight train. All that time, I thought I was building a life with her. Turns out she was secretly stabbing me in the back, selling our house behind my back and lying straight to my face. That was the final straw. I realized I had to turn the tables. If she thought she could manipulate me, she was dead wrong. I started making plans to expose her, to fight back legally, and to make sure she paid for what she'd done. At the same time, I was feeling a strange mixture of anger, sadness, and a kind of numbness. Part of me wanted to break everything, to destroy her, to make her regret ever crossing me. But a bigger part knew I needed to stay calm, calculated. I couldn't let her see I was onto her. I needed to catch her in her lies, in her betrayal, and then strike. I started thinking about how I could use her own greed, her own manipulations against her. If I could prove she'd been orchestrating the sale of our house, I could turn her plans into her downfall. I also started reaching out to a lawyer. I wanted to know my options, especially about the sale, the ownership, and the potential legal fallout. The more I learned, the more I realized how deep her deception went. She'd even lied to her own family about the house sale, making it seem like she was just helping out her boss with a side project. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone. It was like living in a nightmare, but I knew I had to wake up and fight for what was mine. In the meantime, I kept gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment to confront her. I knew she'd try to manipulate me, to deny everything, but I had the proof. I just had to be patient. I was planning to confront her with everything, her affair, the sale, the lies, and then decide what to do next. Didn't want her to get away with it, not without consequences. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to understand that I wasn't going to be a pushover anymore. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I had to take control. I couldn't let her keep pulling the strings. I had to be smart, strategic, and relentless. I was angry, yes, but I also knew I had to stay focused. I was going to make her regret ever crossing me, and I was going to do it in a way she'd never expect. Because if she thought she could cheat and lie her way out of this, she was dead wrong. Once I had all my evidence gathered, screenshots, recordings, the financial documents, the plan started forming in my mind. I knew I couldn't confront Lisa without being prepared. She was manipulative, a master at twisting situations to her advantage. I had to be smarter, more calculated. I spent days just watching her, waiting for her to slip up again, and I kept refining my approach. I wanted her to realize that I wasn't some naive fool anymore. I was in control now. One afternoon, she left the house claiming she was going to meet her friend for coffee. I knew she was heading to Mark's office to finalize the sale of our house, or so she said. I decided that was my opportunity. I had already spoken to my lawyer, who advised me on how to handle the situation legally, ways to freeze the sale, gather more evidence, and protect my rights. I also arranged to meet with a private investigator to confirm her whereabouts and activities. I wanted to catch her red-handed, but I also knew I needed to be discreet. I couldn't let her suspect I was onto her. I followed her to Mark's office. It was a nerve-wracking drive, heart pounding, palms sweaty. When she got out of her car, I parked a few blocks away and watched her go inside. She was wearing a tight dress, looking confident, almost smug. I saw her hand him a folder, and I knew it was about the house sale. I kept my distance, waiting until she left. When she finally walked out, I decided to make my move. I approached her in the parking lot, pretending I just bumped into her by coincidence. I kept my tone calm but firm. "Lisa, I need to talk to you now." Her eyes widened, and for a second she looked genuinely surprised. I could see the flicker of panic in her face, but she quickly masked it with a smirk. "What are you doing here?" she asked, trying to act innocent. "I've been following you," I said bluntly. "I know everything. About you and Mark, about the house sale, everything. I have the proof. You're not going to get away with this." Her face twisted into a mixture of anger and defiance. "You're crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. This is all a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding? Really?" I pulled out my phone, showing her the recordings, the texts, the financial documents. "You've been selling our house behind my back, lying about it, and sleeping with your boss. Do you think I'm stupid?" She looked like she was about to lose control, but she quickly regained her composure. "This is just a bunch of lies. You're trying to ruin me. You're jealous because I don't want to be with someone who's so insecure." I was furious. I'd never seen her like this, so brazen, so manipulative. I knew I had to stay calm. "I'm not jealous, I'm hurt. You betrayed me, lied to my face, and tried to steal everything we built. I'm done playing nice. The truth is out, and I'm going to make sure you pay for what you did." She scoffed, turning to walk away. "You're just bitter. You'll regret this. Mark and I are going to be fine without you." That was the moment I realized I couldn't just threaten her. I had to act decisively. I called my lawyer right then and there, gave him all the evidence, and told him I wanted to stop the sale of the house immediately. I also scheduled a meeting with a court to get a temporary restraining order if needed. I was starting to see how deep her deception went, and I wanted to cut her off before she could do any more damage. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, exhausted but relieved that I'd taken a stand. I knew there would be more battles ahead, but I also knew I was no longer the naive man who trusted her blindly. I had uncovered the truth, and I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine: our home, our life, and my dignity. Thinking about everything that had happened, I realized how much I'd been blind to her manipulations. She always played the victim, always had an excuse ready. She lied about her feelings, her actions, her intentions. But now, with all the evidence laid out, I didn't have to guess anymore. I saw her for who she really was, a woman willing to destroy everything to serve her own interests. And I was done being the victim. It was time to take control, to stand up for myself, and to get justice. No matter how hard it was going to be, I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. Not this time. Over the next few days, I kept my focus sharp. I worked closely with my lawyer to file the necessary paperwork to halt the house sale and to secure my ownership rights. I wanted everything in writing, legally binding. I also contacted a forensic accountant to dig into Lisa's financial records more thoroughly. I needed to understand exactly how much she'd profited from selling our house secretly, and what she might be planning next. Meanwhile, Lisa's behavior grew even more erratic. She started acting like I was the crazy one, accusing me of spying and making things up. She told her friends I was paranoid, that I'd lost my mind. But I didn't care what anyone thought anymore. I had the evidence, and I knew what I was dealing with. Every lie, every manipulation was starting to surface, and I was determined to expose her completely. One afternoon, I went to her workplace, pretending to be just a concerned husband. I wanted to see her reaction when I confronted her directly. She was in her office, acting busy, but I could tell she was tense. I sat down across from her, looked her in the eyes, and said, "Lisa, I know everything. About Mark, the house, the sale. I've seen the proof. We're done pretending. You're caught." Her face drained of color for a moment, then she managed a fake smile. "You're overreacting. This is all just a misunderstanding. You're making a big deal out of nothing." "Nothing," I snapped back. "You've been lying to me for months. You sold our house behind my back, slept with your boss, and tried to steal everything from me. How is that nothing?" She looked around nervously, then tried to brush it off. "Look, I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was just trying to get ahead, to make a life for myself. You wouldn't understand." That was a lie, of course. She'd been planning this for a long time. I could see it in her eyes. She was trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty or responsible. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I was done listening to her excuses, that I had proof and witnesses. I left her office knowing I had her cornered. I'd made it clear I wasn't backing down. But the real shock came a few days later. My lawyer called with some news. It turned out Lisa had already transferred a significant portion of the profit from the house sale to her personal account, trying to hide her tracks. She'd been betting on me not doing anything, thinking I'd just roll over and accept her lies. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I had all her bank statements, her emails, her messages, proof that she'd been orchestrating this entire scheme. I decided to take action. I filed a formal legal complaint demanding the house sale be reversed, and I initiated proceedings to recover the money she'd stolen. I also contacted a private investigator to look into her other financial activities, just to be sure she wasn't planning to run or hide any other assets. I knew her well enough now. She was capable of anything. Throughout all this, I felt a strange mix of anger and relief. I was angry she'd betrayed me so cruelly, but I also felt relief that I was finally taking control. I realized that I'd been a fool to trust blindly, but now I was fighting back. I was no longer a victim of her lies. I was fighting for what was rightfully mine, for the house we built together, and for my own dignity. I also started thinking about the future. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay married or just cut ties completely, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this chaos. I had to make a decision soon. Was I going to fight for the marriage, or was I going to walk away? Right now, I felt more like walking away. I've been betrayed in every way possible, and I didn't see how trust could ever be rebuilt after all this. But whatever I decided, one thing was clear. I was done being the fool. I was done being the one who got played. I was going to make her pay for what she'd done, legally, financially, emotionally. I was going to take everything back that she tried to steal from me, and I was going to reclaim my life piece by piece. The fight was just beginning, and I was ready for it. The legal battles dragged on for weeks, each day feeling like a new punch to the gut. Lisa, of course, kept spinning her lies, trying to claim I was paranoid, that I was making everything up to ruin her. She even went as far as to accuse me of stalking her at work, which was total garbage. But I had the proof, and I knew how to use it. Every message, every financial transfer, every sneaky call she made to Mark, all of it was in my favor. Still, it was exhausting. I felt like I was fighting an uphill battle against someone who would do anything to save herself. One day, I finally got the court to issue a temporary restraining order. It meant Lisa couldn't sell or transfer any more assets related to the house until the case was settled. It was a small victory, but it felt huge at the time. Now I knew she couldn't just sneak off with our money or continue her lies. I also hired a forensic accountant to trace every dollar she'd moved. The amount she'd stolen or tried to hide was staggering. She'd already drained a good chunk of the profit from the house sale, and I had all the evidence to prove it. Meanwhile, she was losing her composure. Her bitchy side came out even more. She was snapping at friends, accusing me of ruining her reputation and trying to turn everyone against me. But I didn't care. I knew her game now. She was a manipulator, a liar, and a thief. Her confidence was cracking, and I could see her desperation growing. She'd always been good at lying, but I had her cornered. The truth was catching up with her, and she knew it. One night, I sat in my apartment, going through the evidence again. I realized how much she'd lied, how much she'd manipulated me. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. Anger because she'd betrayed everything we built, and sadness because I still cared about the woman I thought I knew. But I also knew I couldn't keep living this way. I had to make a decision, stay and fight, or walk away for good. That decision became clearer when I found out she'd been planning to leave town. She'd been talking to some shady investors about starting fresh somewhere else, probably with the money she'd stolen. I couldn't let her do that, not without consequences, so I made up my mind. I was going to fight her in court for full custody of the house, for the money she'd stolen, and for my dignity. I wasn't going to let her get away with destroying us. I also reached out to a divorce lawyer. I wanted to start the process, not because I was giving up, but because I needed to protect myself. I knew I'd never fully trust her again, but I also knew I deserved a clean break. I wanted her out of my life, out of my house, and out of my head. I had to start rebuilding from the ground up, and that meant cutting ties completely. I had no illusions that it would be easy, but I was ready to face whatever came next. Throughout all of this, I kept reminding myself that I had done nothing wrong. I had been faithful and honest. Lisa's betrayal was a reflection of her own flaws, not mine. I learned that trusting blindly can be dangerous, and that sometimes you have to fight to protect what's yours. I also learned that revenge isn't just about hurting someone. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your peace of mind. So now I'm waiting for the final court date. The legal process has been brutal, but I feel more confident than ever that I'll come out on top. I've lost a lot: my wife, my trust, the future I thought we had. But I refuse to lose everything. I'm determined to start over, to rebuild what's broken, and to make sure she understands that betrayal has consequences. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing: I will never let anyone do this to me again. Not without a fight. The court date finally arrived, and I felt a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. After months of fighting, gathering evidence, and planning my next moves, I was ready to see it all come to a head. Lisa showed up looking tense, trying to put on her usual bitchy front, but I could see the cracks in her facade. She knew she'd been caught dead to rights. When the judge called the case, I laid out everything: proof of her affair, the illegal sale of our house, the financial theft, and her attempts to leave town with the money. The courtroom was tense, and I felt every eye on us. I knew Lisa was trying to manipulate the situation, but I was prepared. I presented my evidence calmly and confidently, letting the facts speak for themselves. After hours of testimony, the judge ruled in my favor on all counts. The sale of the house was reversed, and Lisa was ordered to return the stolen funds, plus damages for her deceit. The court also granted me full custody of the house, and she was barred from contacting me or trying to sell any remaining assets without approval. When I walked out of the courthouse, I felt like I'd been released from prison. All the stress, betrayal, and constant fighting had taken a toll, but I finally had control. I knew this wasn't just about money or property. It was about reclaiming my life from someone who had tried to destroy it. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, knowing I'd fought for what was right and won. In the weeks that followed, I moved out of the house and started rebuilding. I cut all contact with Lisa. No more calls, no more texts, no more lies. I found a small apartment nearby, enough to get back on my feet. I also started therapy to deal with the emotional aftermath of everything. Betrayal like this leaves scars, but I was determined not to let it define me. I learned that trust is fragile, and that sometimes the only person you can truly count on is yourself. Looking back, I realize how naive I was to think I knew her. Lisa was a master of deception. She lied and cheated her way through our life together, all while pretending everything was fine. But I also learned that even in the face of betrayal, you can find strength. You can fight back, stand your ground, and come out stronger. Revenge isn't just about hurting someone. It's about reclaiming your dignity and making sure they understand they can't get away with betrayal without consequences. Now, I focus on moving forward. I've started saving again, rebuilding my confidence, and learning to trust again, slowly, carefully. I won't let her or anyone else break me again. Because in the end, the biggest lesson I learned is that no matter how much someone tries to destroy you, your resilience and integrity are the most powerful weapons you have. And I'll never forget that.